No puns intended. The South Dakota Prairie, Tripp County and Winter to be more precise, on the Rosebud Indian Reservation, is where I was born to Lily Mae Allison, a full-blooded Swede, and Harold Walter Eagleton, who claimed to be a slot bucket Dutch and shanty Irish. A cousin has clarified that somewhat dubious ancestral lineage by digging up an Eagleton coat of arms and connecting us to the Mayflower, which I'm learning from the Humanity Project isn't necessarily something I'd like to be crowing about. At any rate, Mom and Dad raised me in the Methodist Church, which I complacently went along with through high school. I'm going to apologize right now for my voice and moments of having to cough. So, through high school, very Methodist. As a second semester freshman, our family moved to Rapid City, South Dakota, me into a high school the size of Winter, so you can imagine how vital my Methodist Youth Fellowship became as my go-to community. I learned leadership skills as president of the MYF for 3 years, exercised the art of diplomacy and advocacy on important social justice issues, like addressing the church board on the no dancing in the church basement rule. And I also learned not to ask uncomfortable questions like why I hadn't had a road to Damascus experience, a Saul to Paul epiphany. Well, my Sunday school teacher said I couldn't expect one because I had been born a Christian. Well, from that point on, I felt cheated. I had missed what was supposedly a most exciting, revelatory, truly initiatory experience of the Christian faith. Thank you, Audrey. I now have a new relationship to this, in that I have had an unconscious seminal event. The kind that you say, oh, 3 days later, now I know what I should have said. That Sunday school encounter was my crack in being a believer, my truly seminal moment. I continued to drift along on the coattails of Methodism, entering Dakota Wesleyan University in the fall of 1965. I explored other Christian faiths, though not the Catholic Church. I waited to break that taboo when I married one in 1972. But I did them all: Baptist, Lutheran, fundamental community churches, and by my sophomore year at Dakota Wesleyan, I simply gave up. Sleeping in on Sunday really took priority. I was secretary to the campus minister for all 4 years as part of my scholarship, and Dr. Bailey encouraged me to take philosophy and theology classes, but I honestly didn't think I was smart enough. I won't go into how long I functioned out of that or not. The empty-headed blonde, dumb blonde, Pollyanna stereotypes. I'm not going to say that I lived out of those for too long, because I am a believer in the axiom that when the student is ready, the teacher will appear. At any rate, I declined the invitation to explore and kept my head down to achieve my 3 life goals: to be financially independent from my parents, to teach, and to travel. It wasn't until after 3 years of teaching and exposure to the Ecumenical Institute that I discovered 20th century theologians like Dietrich Bonhoeffer and Paul Tillich, Teilhard de Chardin, and a host of other mystical and metaphysical writings that I began to awaken. In 1972, I quit my teaching job, married, and we joined the Ecumenical Institute. And for the next 5 years, experiences living in Chicago, Milwaukee, Paris, and Nigeria opened my prairie eyes and gave me a worldview that has served me well through the ups and downs of 40-plus years of marriage, 3 pregnancies, separation, grandparenting, partnering, friending, and wandering. Wandering, yes, a spiritual journey as a pilgrim. Whenever I'm asked to lead something, I show up with at least one book, and to some people's chagrin, I may inflict the gathering with a poem. I might play music, or light a candle, or ask people to sit quietly. As I prepared this talk, I had to go from pile to place, book to scrap of paper, and collect the random ideas and thoughts that I had jotted down since Audrey asked me to share this journey. I am a wanderer. And about 25 years ago, I remembered a book that my cousin Maureen had given me when I was in high school. It was on yoga. I was new in Green Bay, and I was exploring my favorite hidey hole, the library, and saw a poster for a yoga studio. I drove over there immediately, signed up for a class, and the next thing I knew, Kathleen, the owner and teacher, had introduced me to her brother's Buddhist Sangha, and I was home, or as home as I'll ever be. Since then, I have felt guilt for being a cherry picker amongst religious beliefs. I have read and embraced agnosticism, atheism, Buddhism, and joined wholeheartedly in the choir of I don't know, only to be able to share this journal entry with you. And it's recent. It's from Wednesday, September 6th, 2017. The conscious evolution discussion was here this morning, and it was really good, and what a way to start my day. Chapter 4 dwells on awe experiences. In the Christian language, that has a particular meaning. However, for me, it impedes the place I am that really begs or longs for every encounter, every moment, to hold the possibility of awe. In other words, awe doesn't need to be confined to falling off my donkey. Buddhism has invited me into a much more joyful, positive, kind, compassionate path of living. I guess I have had a fall off your donkey experience, and it just wasn't as dramatic as I expected, and other people would have had me think. I know there's a life lesson embedded there, something about expectations and how they can obscure the experience of the moment. Something like that comes to mind. Of course, the most recent experience, I feel, is the most relevant to me, and I wouldn't be me if I didn't pull out an author, a book title, a poem, or a cliche to share. And here's my current favorite. Actually, Thomas More has been a journey companion for many, many years. I read his first book, Care of the Soul. He's not the old Thomas More, by the way. 3 times, and I use it frequently as a reference. His newest tome is The Ageless Soul, and he says in there, quote, "We are all like cows, constantly chewing on memories of the past to make sense of them and trying to arrive at some peace," close quote. I would edit peace and replace it with meaning. This delicious time that I was invited to explore with you has helped me to harvest my own life in a way that I had not taken time to do, although I have preached it before. So I'm thanking you for this opportunity. I'd like to share some of my random journaling thoughts with you. They're not particularly linear. Most of the time my thinking's not either, so this is, what you see is what you get. So the first thing is, teaching the Transcendentalists in 1969 at Horlick High School in Racine was really my first encounter with what I now know are amongst some of the biggest names in UU history. This is my new go-to community. Secondly, circles are a huge part of my spiritual journey, as I clearly remember sitting on the floor at my Grandma Allison's feet, crayons and coloring book before me, as her Martha circle held their Bible study. And currently, I am surrounded by circles. Circles, women of wisdom, chalice circles, the Pondering Friends with Conscious Evolution, the UU Nonfiction Book Club, to my breakfast circle, community at every turn, and it shows up in circles. Reading from all of the wisdom traditions have been essential to my spiritual journey. From Hermann Hesse's Journey to the East, Kazantzakis' Saviors of God, I can only witness, to quote Thomas More again, "Our spiritual journey is about the soul's journey, not about religion. Close quote. And since soul might be one of those semantic sticky wickets, I would simply say my spiritual journey is not about religion. In this 7th decade of experience, I am intentionally letting go of concern over questions of God and religion, and I'm focusing on nurturing an ageless soul in the context of poets and sages. My good friend, mentor, and companion in eldering lives in Elkhorn, so we don't see much of each other, and most often our eldering is done over the phone. We have coffee and robes frequently, and I especially like what she has coined as her goals for eldering, and I hope you make this leap with me, because for me, eldering is about the work of the soul. It is my spiritual journey, and Mary says this: she aims to be authentic, eccentric, and wise. And I have more fun playing around with what those 3 words mean in my life right now. It really does make this aging journey that I'm on a delicious journey. Besides letting go of concerns over God and religious issues, I am letting judging sit at the back of the bus, no longer in the first seat. I'm no longer embarrassed or ashamed of the Pollyanna stereotype. It's just more fun to look on the sunny side of life. And equally rewarding for me is the fact that emptiness has taken on a vast new meaning through my Buddhist practice and readings. I always say, somewhat offhandedly most of the time, that we are on this earth to be in relationship to ourselves and to others. And as I continue on this spiritual journey, I am pleased and relieved to feel more and more at home with that statement. Relieved because my introvert self is coming more to the front as my extrovert self is stepping back. And my years of experience are letting me know that for everything there is a season. Thank you, Bible, for that piece of poetry. And that self-reflection, introspection, interiority are all really essential, juicy, rich, and deep when it comes to thinking about our spiritual journeys. Thank you very much. I encourage everybody to do this job.